Most experiments come with an undo button. This one didn't. In 2018, a scientist claimed he'd edited the DNA of babies. Not in theory, not someday. He claimed it had already happened. And the reaction wasn't celebration, it was alarming. Because once you edit an embryo, you're not just changing one life. You're taking a risk that could follow every cell after it. So here's the timeline. Late 2018, Zhenghui He from the Southern University of Science and Technology of China steps into the spotlight at the second International Summit on Human Genome Editing in Hong Kong. And he makes the claim that it hits like a stun grenade in the science world. He says he's created the world's first genetically altered babies using CRISPR. The reaction is immediate, not applause. The announcement sparked controversy and criticism. Because once you move from editing cells to editing a child, you're no longer doing a lab demo. You're making a decision that follows a human being for life. Now, a quick reality check on what CRISPR actually is. People hear gene editing and picture a surgeon making a perfect cut. That's not how this works. CRISPR is more like make a cut in the DNA, then the cell tries to repair the damage. And that repair step is where things get messy. Cells often use a pathway called non-homologous end joining, basically a fast patch job. Fast doesn't mean precise. That patch can create small changes in the DNA, like insertions or deletions. So the first shocking truth is simple. CRISPR is powerful, yes, but in embryos, it's not a neat keyboard edit. It's a cut and repair process, and repair can surprise you. Here's the part that keeps researchers up at night. Off-target edits. When CRISPR doesn't just cut the spot you aimed at, it also nicks other places in the genome you weren't trying to touch. And in an embryo, that's not a minor glitch, because if an unintended change lands in the wrong gene, it can raise the risk of serious disease later on. It is a major safety concern, including the possibility of outcomes like cancer. So when people say, why not just try it? This is why. You're not testing a gadget, you're writing changes into a human blueprint, and you might not even know what you changed until years later. And then there's a risk that sounds technical, but it's brutally simple. Mosaicism. If the edit doesn't happen cleanly at the very first cell, the embryo keeps dividing, and some cells get edited while others don't. So you can end up with a child whose body isn't genetically consistent. Different cells, different outcomes. That's the scary part. You're not just asking, did it work? You're asking, where did it work and where didn't it? Because an edit that shows up in one tissue but not another can create effects nobody can predict ahead of time. Now let's talk about the target, CCR5. The stated reason was HIV prevention. Here's the problem. CCR5 isn't some tiny isolated HIV-only switch. It's heavily active in immune cells like T cells and macrophages, and it shows up in other tissues too, including things like epithelium and vascular tissues. So when you delete it, you're not just messing with one doorway for a virus. You're touching a gene that's involved in a lot of places we don't fully control. Here is a scary example, where CCR5 deletion is linked to lupus nephritis susceptibility. CCR5 is present in the central nervous system and is tied to brain functions like learning and memory pathways. The bottom line is blunt. CCR5's function across tissues is still not fully understood, and deleting it could trigger unexpected disease. That makes it a risky target for embryo editing. Here's where the scientific community draws the line, and it's actually pretty clear. Lane 1. Research. Do the work in the lab, push the science forward, even in human germline cells, but only under strict legal and ethical oversight. Lane 2. Somatic therapy. Editing cells in a living person to treat disease. That can move forward inside existing medical regulations and guidelines. Lane 3. Reproductive germline editing. Editing embryos for pregnancy and birth. This is, in principle, prohibited until safety and ethical issues are actually resolved. So the message isn't CRISPR is evil. It's don't turn babies into the beta test. Here's the part that should make anyone sit up. This wasn't happening in a lawless wasteland. Many countries already have principles and guidelines for embryo experiments. It even gives examples. In the US, federal funding and FDA review are restricted for embryo work that would create heritable genetic modification. And China already had multiple ethics and biotech safety guidelines on the books. But then comes the catch: the gap you can drive a truck through. While rules can regulate government-funded work, there are few restrictions for privately funded research. And that's why scientists don't just say, "Be careful." They make a direct recommendation. If we want to avoid the birth of a second CRISPR baby, governments should regulate clinical experiments using this technique for human reproductive purposes. In other words, guidelines are nice, enforcement is the whole game. So what's the real takeaway? Science went too far, or CRISPR is a monster? The timing was wrong, and the risks were not under control. In a lab, if something goes wrong, you stop, you learn, you try again. But when the experiment becomes a person, there's no reset button. The uncertainties in embryo editing, off-target effects, mosaicism, and the unknowns around genes like CCR5 don't stay on paper. They live inside someone. That's why the scientists call it irresponsible and too early, and why they push for stronger regulation to prevent this from happening again. If you had to draw the line today, where would it be? Lab research only? Adult therapies? Or never in embryos at all?
Drop your boundary in the comments. And if you want, I'll do a follow-up on what the next realistic regulated steps in genome editing actually look like.